We took a single buying question, the best standing desk, and put it to the exact same AI engine 5 slightly different ways, changing only a word or two each time. We asked for the best one, then the best affordable one, then the best for a small office, and a couple of other everyday versions of the same question. And the engine handed back a different number one brand almost every time, from the same engine, in the same few minutes, with nothing changed but the wording. One phrasing crowned a premium name everyone knows, and the very next one crowned a budget brand the first answer had not mentioned at all. None of those companies did a thing in between. Nobody touched a website. The only thing that moved was the handful of words in the question. So today I want to walk through why the wording swings the answer this much, and what it quietly does to the way you check whether you are showing up in AI search. Let me lay out what we track first, because the rest of this rests on it. Every week, we put the same buyer questions to the 5 big AI search engines: ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, Claude, and Grok. And for each answer, we write down 3 things: whether your brand got named, whether it got cited, which means the engine attached a real, clickable link to a page backing up why it picked you, and which exact pages it pulled to build the answer. The word that matters most today is query. And a query is the exact wording someone types into the engine. And the thing to grasp early is that these engines treat a query as a whole, not as a loose topic. To you, the best standing desk and a cheap standing desk for a small room feel like 2 versions of the same shopping trip. To the engine, they are 2 different questions, and it goes off looking for a different answer to each one. So your brand is never in or out of a category as a whole. It is in or out of each specific phrasing, one phrasing at a time. So why would changing a handful of words swing the result this hard? When the engine answers, it tries to match the exact question to pages that fit that exact question, and the words you pick are what tell it what you care about. Ask for the best standing desk, and it reaches for broad roundups and overview pages about top desks in general, the kind of page where the established premium names tend to sit. But add the word affordable, or the phrase for a small home office, or for someone tall, and you have handed the engine a much narrower target to aim at. Now it wants pages about cheap desks, or compact desks, or desks built for tall people, and a different set of brands tends to live on those pages. The engine is not being random here. It is being literal, answering the specific words sitting in front of it rather than the broad category you had in your head. So the more specific the wording gets, the more the winners shift around. And real buyers tend to ask in very specific words, which is exactly where this stops being a curiosity and starts costing you. Let me make that concrete with one standing desk brand. Say you sell a mid-price standing desk that is good for tight spaces, and you go check the engine the obvious way by asking it for the best standing desk. You come back third on a clean little list, your name sitting right next to the big incumbents everyone already knows, and it reads as a solid result. But your actual buyers almost never type those 3 tidy words. They ask for an affordable standing desk under some price, or the best standing desk for a small apartment, or a compact one that will fit a cramped little office. Run those exact questions, and the picture quietly falls apart in the places you never thought to look. On the affordable question, a budget brand you have barely heard of takes the top spot. And on the small apartment question, a compact-focused competitor owns the whole answer. And on both of those, your name does not show up anywhere at all. So the one phrasing you happened to check was the single phrasing where you looked strong, while the phrasings your buyers do use were already going to someone else. This is exactly what makes a single check so misleading. You ran one question, you saw one good answer, and you closed the laptop believing you show up well across AI search, but you only ever learned about one phrasing out of dozens your buyers do use, and it happened to be the flattering one. The short, clean query, the best standing desk, is the one a marketer naturally reaches for because it is the one you tend to picture your product winning. Real buyers are usually further down the road and far more specific, carrying a budget, a room size, a particular need, and they pack all of that straight into the question. So the query you test and the query they ask are very often not the same query at all, and the answer can be completely different for each of them. Checking the version you would phrase instead of the versions they would phrase is how you end up feeling confident and staying invisible at the very same time. It helps to see how many separate questions hide under a single category. For one product, like a standing desk, there is the plain best version, and then sitting right behind it, there is best for the money, best for a small space, best for a tall person, best quiet one, best that assembles in 10 minutes, best under a fixed budget, and the list keeps going from there. Each one of those is its own query, and each one can hand back a different winner on each of the 5 engines. So you are not trying to win a single question. You are trying to show up across a whole spread of related questions, most of which you have never typed yourself. And the long, specific ones are not some rare edge case. They are where a huge share of real buying intent sits, because the person asking is close to buying and knows precisely what they need. The short query is the one you keep watching, and the long, detailed ones are the ones quietly handing your buyers over to somebody else. Now layer the 5 engines back on top, because the wording is only half of the problem. Each engine maps that same spread of questions to pages in its own particular way. So a phrasing where you win on one engine can easily be a phrasing where you vanish on another. You might own the small apartment question on ChatGPT because it happens to lean on a review page that features you, and then lose that exact same question on Perplexity because it reaches for a different page that leaves you out entirely. So this is not a single scoreboard at all. It is a grid. Every buyer phrasing crossed with every engine, and your name is sitting present in some of the cells and missing from plenty of others. One answer you happen to read is a single square pulled out of that whole grid. It tells you how you did on one phrasing, on one engine, on one day, and almost nothing about the dozens of other squares your buyers are spread across. So the useful question turns into how you show up across more of those squares, not only the comfortable one. And it comes down to having pages and mentions that match the specific ways people ask, instead of only speaking to the broad category. If buyers keep asking for an affordable option, you want a clear page that speaks plainly to price. And if they ask for a small space option, you want a page that plainly covers fit and footprint, so the engine has something exact to grab when that exact question rolls in. The same goes for the places real people compare notes, the threads and the review roundups where someone asks for a compact desk on a tight budget and a dozen others answer, because those are the pages engines lean on to settle the specific questions. What you are doing is giving each version of the question a real, matching answer to find, rather than hoping one general page somehow covers all of them. It is slower than chasing the single best query, and it is the thing that widens how often you turn up. The real trap underneath all of this is optimizing for the phrasing that already flatters you. It feels good to check the best standing desk, spot yourself near the top, and keep pointing back at that one result. But that is the query you were probably going to win anyway, and pouring more effort into it does very little for the buyers who are asking in completely different words. The growth is hiding over in the questions you are losing, the specific ones you never check precisely because they do not show you in a good light. Those are the answers a real buyer with a real budget and a real constraint is reading right now, and they are the ones worth knowing about. So the goal was never to collect the flattering screenshot. It is to find the phrasings where you are missing and then go earn your way into them. 2 honest caveats before you go and act on any of this. We track a set number of brands and questions across a handful of categories, so the exact spread of phrasings that matter most in your particular market could look fairly different from ours. And the winners on these specific queries do move over time, the same way the broad ones do. So any single reading is a snapshot rather than some fixed permanent truth. What stays steady underneath all the movement, though, is the shape of the thing. The wording of the question changes the answer. Buyers ask in far more specific words than marketers ever test, and the 5 engines each handle those words in their own separate way. That pattern has turned up over and over in what we track, even as the individual winners keep shuffling around from one week to the next. So here's a check you can run yourself, for free, in about 15 minutes. Take one thing you sell, and instead of the single, clean query, write down 5 different ways a real buyer might ask for it, with the budget, the use case, and the constraints they would naturally include. For a standing desk, that might be the best one overall, then the best affordable one, the best for a small room, the best for a tall person, and the best that is quick to put together. Put each of those 5 to all 5 engines: ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, Claude, and Grok. And for every answer, note whether you were named, whether you got a real link, and which pages the engine pulled to build it. Lay the rows out next to each other, and the holes jump straight out at you, strong on the broad question, missing on the specific ones, present on one engine, and gone on the next. That little table is a far more honest picture of where you stand than the one flattering answer you would have checked and trusted on your own. Running that table once is the easy part. Running it across every phrasing, every engine, every week, and keeping the history so you can watch which questions you are winning and losing over time is the part that quietly slides off your list by about the second month. That is where LoudMink comes in, by the way. It runs a whole set of your buyer questions, the broad ones and the long, specific ones together, against all 5 AI search engines on a set schedule. And it records week by week whether you were named, whether you were cited with a real link, and which sources each engine pulled to get there. So the phrasings where you are missing stop being a blind spot you never see, and turn into a plain list you can work through one by one. You would notice that you own the broad query and lose the affordable one, and you would know exactly which answer to go and fix. So if there is one thing to take away from all this, it is to stop judging your AI visibility off the single question you would naturally type, because your buyers are asking in dozens of more specific ways, and the winner keeps changing with the words. The short, clean query is the one that flatters you, and the long, specific ones are where the actual buying tends to happen. So if you want to see which of those answers you are showing up in across all 5 engines, you can run a free scan over at loudmink.ai and find out exactly where you stand. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.